Welcome, folks, another high-tech podcast with Will and Josh.
That's
we
this
are
guy.
Here.
And,
yeah,
and that
you.
guy.
That's me. Yeah, I
Us?
think. Maybe.
Yep.
Theory. Yeah, we've only done that bit a couple times. I'm sure we'll get old. So, welcome, guys, to another interview series. We're doing another one.
We did it.
This is the third one, right?
I think
so.
so.
Number 3 in the series.
We've
Look at us.
even got a fourth being planned.
Yeah, we do. Look at us. We know more than one person, like we said during our first interview.
People have started to finally reply to our DMs. It's great.
Yeah. It's not like we sent to a whole bunch of people. Hashtag Miro, it's fine.
Hashtag Discord, it's fine.
It's cool, guys. We're not hurt at all. Not bitter.
But
anyway,
we'll be here and ready when you are.
We are. We're still here. Interview number 3. We're excited about this one. We are interviewing Brian Lukoff. I said that right? Yeah, look at me. Woo, yay.
He got it.
Sorry, Brian, if you're listening to this. We are so excited to be interviewing Brian Lukoff from Perusall.
Yep.
Tool we talked about a couple episodes ago at this point, probably a little while ago. It's tough for us to track when we're
recording now. You listened a month ago.
Now.
We don't know
You probably
this.
listened a month ago. We don't know. Anyway, we were so excited about Perusall. We touched base with them. They were excited to talk with us, and Brian did us a huge favor and took some time out of his day and talked with us. And so we have a really cool interview for you guys where he's going to talk a lot about the inspiration for the tool. And I think it'll take you about 5 seconds to understand the passion that this guy has for what they're doing and all the freaking new features this guy has. So I'm super excited about this episode. So I'm not going to talk anymore. Let's do it. Let's jump in and hear from Brian Lukoff from Perusall.
We are thrilled today, Josh and I, to have with us Brian Lukoff, who is the founder, current CEO of Perusall, one of our tools that we've had in episodes in the past. We're very excited to get into this interview today because Perusall is not only one that we enjoy using, we've used it, but we really think that it has a good social impact on our students and their learning experience. Brian, are you with us here? You got us?
I'm here. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Absolutely. Where are you today, Brian? What's the weather like?
I'm in Austin, Texas, and it's nice and sunny today. Probably be another nice hot summer day.
Ooh, you've had a lot of that, right?
Yeah, that's what we like here.
I think my sister-in-law lives in Austin, and I think last year she said they made the record for the most consecutive hottest days in a row, or something like that, in their history.
It can get quite toasty in the summer for sure.
Now, do you have like your system there in Perusall and everybody's set up in Austin, or are you a distributed company? Like where's everybody located?
We're completely remote. I'm actually the only one in Austin.
Cool.
Everyone else on our team is out east, in different places, and mostly in the Northeast.
What drove you to start Perusall? Right, it was just you. Was it you and a couple others?
No, so it's actually myself, and I have three partners. So my partners are Eric Mazur, Gary King, and Kelly Miller, and they're all faculty at Harvard. And Eric and Gary and I had started a previous company together called Learning Catalytics, which was a response system, software based. Basically intending to, at the time we had started it, which was about a little over 10 years ago, to make the classroom more interactive. Like clickers were starting to do at that time, but we thought, hey, everyone has a device now they're bringing to class. We can do kind of more interesting things than just A, B, C, D, E.
Yep.
And we had built that, ended up selling that company to Pearson. And what that taught us is that there's definitely a lot of appetite to make the classroom more active, which we all felt was really important. But one of the challenges we learned when we were kind of talking to people about using this and about just the pedagogy of active learning in general is that the challenge of teaching more actively is if you're not spending your entire class time lecturing, it means you're going to cover less. If you're taking 10, 15, 20 minutes, maybe longer to do, whether it's, quote unquote, clicker questions or any other kind of active learning activity,
Right,
that's less time you have in class to just, plow through content. And so if you want to cover all the material, you have to have some way of students getting that material in a different way. And ideally, students would be reading before they come to class. So that
ideally, yes.
Ideally, right?
That's my first joke of the day. I love that. Exactly.
And so when they come to class, they've already gotten the easy stuff. There's a lot of stuff that students don't need to hear me say explicitly in class. There's a lot of easy stuff they can get on their own. And really, it's a better use of class time to focus in on the more complex, the more challenging, the more interesting pieces, and let them get the easy stuff on their own. And also come to class having warmed up themselves about the hard stuff.
Kind of have a sense of where things are going.
Exactly. Yeah. So, if students are reading before class, they're not going to master all the material before coming to class, but hopefully they will start thinking about some of these more challenging concepts so that when they're hearing them in class, it's not the first time that they're thinking about them.
Right.
Mm-hmm. But of course, the challenge, and obviously why this was, it became a joke with, a few minutes ago, was because a lot of students don't read before class. Even if you tell students, read chapter 5 before coming to class, most students,
you're lucky that they have the book.
Do it. Right. Right. And
or know where chapter 5 is.
Exactly. And we realize that there's a few different reasons, I think, why that's the case. I think for some students, it's, they don't see why it's an important thing to do. Yeah. They've got all these demands on their time. This is one of many things they're supposed to be doing outside of class, and it falls down on the priority list. For some of those students, if it's not part of their grade, they're not going to do it. No matter how.
That's the number one motivator.
Yeah.
Right. And I think there's definitely a lot of students who will, make an effort. They'll kind of open it up. They'll get into it, and then they'll get stuck somewhere. I teach statistics, and so the textbook that my students are using, or whatever article they're reading, there could be some some terminology that's confusing, a formula that's confusing, and it's easy to get really bogged down really early on, and then just to feel like, look, I don't know how where to go from here. And if the student's doing that reading at 11:30 at night, the night before class, they don't really have a place to go. They, I think they often just feel like, look, I don't know how to get help on this, and they just sort of throw up their hands and think, look, I'll just wait for class, and I'll wait for the professor to explain it in class.
It's the trifecta of demotivation, right? They're at a low physical status, being so late at the night. They're up against a deadline, which is impacting their emotional status, and they don't have the strategies to do it well in the first place. Like that's a really hard moment, and I know I did it.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? You can't fault them for it.
Absolutely. And I think that your point about the strategies is really important too, because I think oftentimes students will approach reading an academic text, whether it's a textbook or, whether it's reading a literature they're going to read for a literature course, or a research article in a social science course. Oftentimes students approach that like they were going to read a John Grisham novel at the beach, right? Where you open it up and you pass your eyes over all the words exactly once, and then you get to the end, you close it, and you're done. You don't really come back.
That's enough, right?
Yeah.
Right. And so students often aren't in that mode of how they have to read actively to really get something out of the book. So, kind of all of this, I think, is kind of comes together as to why we why we built Perusall. That we want to both motivate students to read, and we like to think of the motivation as both intrinsic and extrinsic.
Yeah.
Okay. So the intrinsic motivation is we want students to think that this is an interesting activity that's useful for them, that they're getting something out of. Which, to your point, if you're getting frustrated because you don't know how to work with this text, there's nowhere for you to get help when you get stuck, and you don't really feel like you get anything out of it, why do it, right?
Yeah.
So we need to create that motivation for students intrinsically, but then we also need to do it extrinsically, for the students who won't do the activity unless it's part of their grade. How do we do that? And how do we do that in a way that doesn't feel artificial? That doesn't feel like,
right. Yeah.
Because there are lots of ways of doing this that, of motivating students to read that are find ways of doing it, but it also involves a lot of work, and it feels like can feel like a chore for students.
Well, and the way that worked for me as a middle schooler was, reading 10 books to get a free slice of pizza at the local joint, right? Like that's not an option in college. I don't know that we can really give pizza away like that.
No,
yeah, right.
Just saying. Similar.
Free food is just as important in college. Maybe even more important.
More important.
Yeah, or I would see I think resonate with the superficial piece that often comes out of like trying to build that value to the reading. The amount of times I've seen, and Will know this from knowing a previous context institution I'm at, the dreaded thing that our institution calls a reading report that we try to get instructors for the longest time to stop doing, which is just tell me the percentage of reading that you did, and here's your grade for the percentage of reading
either
you
weekly
did.
Or like by the book that they have to read, or at just once at the end of the semester. Like, report to me what you read. Okay.
Yeah. And what the last thing you want is students focused on that that kind of administrative accounting, right? You want them focused on the content, right? We don't want them focused on, hey, this is just a box I have to check to get the part of my grade that's associated with this.
Well, and when you say administrative accounting, we'd be lucky if they were creating a spreadsheet on the side, like accounting for the pages that they read of each chapter. Like that would be even more authentic, maybe, to some of their context than just the fact of like, I'll say 95 because I want to be moderately ethical. Like I remember doing them too. I had them in my undergrad. Like you put 99 or you put 95 because you don't want to lie, quote unquote. But
you want to be like, I didn't read that like last page. I feel like what percentage is that?
Exactly.
Or 96.73.
Again, that's when if those folks that are running the spreadsheet on the side to calculate.
I forgot to read those 4 words at the end. Yeah.
But that to me is one of the powers of Perusall. We don't necessarily, even in our lesson design or activity design in Perusall, we don't have to make the students read every page still. There's so much in the way that the product, I think, supports not only personal reading, but social reading. Like you can just get in there and start addressing what people are asking questions on. You can get in there and just focus on what somebody else has highlighted. I would encourage faculty to go in and pre-highlight certain things that they'd want to make sure the students see, and then tell them whenever there's a highlighted area to like put your focus on that or to ask questions in that section, right? I mean, there's things that we can do that I don't think reading should ever be about the 100%. It should be about the content we want them to learn.
Right. No, and it's a really important point that, one of the strategies sometimes for that, experienced readers use with text is not reading every single word. Right.
Yeah.
And one of the things that you often need to learn is, okay, what's important for me to really, really focus in on at a micro level and read really deeply. What can I just skim over? Because it's just not physically possible to give 110% of your attention to every single word that you're exposed to.
And with the average student being enrolled in 4 to 5 classes, they've got to have that amount of reading per class. I'm totally with you. Like this is why I think a tool, and when Josh and I kind of come up into an academic context and someone offers a pedagogical issue, right? It's the students aren't engaged, the students aren't reading, the students are getting low grades, the students aren't retaining. Like there's always some Venn diagram of issues that are correlating, and we can't fix the issue necessarily because there's going to be a personal motivation on the student side. There might be a technical issue. There might be an administrative burden that's setting them back, meaning they have too much to do at once or whatever. But if we can reduce one of those, the likelihood of them being successful is all the more important. And I think Perusall can reduce a couple different ones depending on what you're trying to do, but just putting the text in a platform and requiring the students to do something with it, and or video, right? Your platform supports more than just PDFs and stuff like that. That is what's so encouraging and even exciting to me, because it makes it easy for them to just get that much more out of. Like you don't have to put that much more effort into reading content in Perusall to just start getting more out of it because of other people asking questions, because of what your instructor might do to lead you down the process. Like I think it's just so powerful, and it's clear. Like we've asked you, what drove you to start Perusall. I'm hearing the passion come out about why you want to do this, and your experiences, as a teacher and such that drive you to do it.
Yeah, and really what we're also trying to do is to give students that, sort of show them what are ways that they can engage in text to both make it more interesting for them and so for them to get more out of it.
Mhm.
To go back to your strategy point, oftentimes in the future they'll be working with text on their own. They won't have this, the engagement with their classmates, but hopefully some of the strategies that they're using with their classmates can serve as a model for how they might, you know, be more active readers of text in the future, so that they start to realize, hey, I have to, I have to ask myself questions about this and think about how this connects to other things that I know or have read or have learned. Um, but that's the stuff that they can do very explicitly within the platform when they're working with their classmates. If you get something and you're confused, you just highlight it, ask, just express that confusion,
Right.
um, and you know get get help from one of your classmates, and that's a really symbiotic relationship, because the student who is stuck, helps, we can help get them unstuck,
Yeah.
um, but also the student that helps, provides the help for them. It's not just an altruistic, hey, I'm being helpful to my classmate, although I think that's really important, to
Right.
help build a kind of build a learning community, but just the act of having to explain your thinking to your classmate and say, oh, let me explain, why this is true or what this means, or how these things connect. Having to articulate that is going to help the student doing that build that concept more concretely, and more strongly in their mind. And sometimes when you go to explain something, you realize that you didn't understand it quite as well as you thought you did,
Yeah. Oh
which is okay
yeah.
too.
Oh yeah.
And that right, and that's really good, because you might say, hey, I thought I started writing you an answer to this and I thought I understood it. Now I'm realizing I don't quite get it.
And then
Um,
you can just put up the flare for help, right? It's like,
Yeah.
well, I thought I was trying to help, but now I need help. Like, let's just keep this daisy chain going.
Right, and then maybe those two students, or maybe some other students, come in and jump into the conversation, and kind of go back and forth, and together kind of create that meaning and really understand what's going on.
Yeah.
Or maybe not. Maybe they don't come to a conclusion, but that's okay, because this, then then they come to class, and now when they're hearing about it in class and they're working on it in class through whatever activities happen in the classroom, now they're really warmed up. Now
Yeah.
they've
Yeah.
really thought about this stuff very deeply, and so they're really ready to listen.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think you're right to say that a lot of students, some of the things we've touched on so far, but a lot of students might be put off or dissuaded or discouraged by not getting it right away, or not necessarily being able to contextualize the information in the textbook, and so those interactions can help alleviate all of that. But then when they get to the classroom, they may not have a higher comprehension yet of the information if they hadn't read it at all, but they still just have more. We in a pedagogical sense, schemata built, like they have folders, categories that are filled in their
Yeah.
mind of what is going to be talked about. I think that's, anything we can get to get them in the book more, great. But,
Yeah.
you know, at kind of a personal pedagogical level for the students, they're that much more prepared. Any of these steps is getting them better for the content. But if we're talking literature, it can take a lot to get into the weeds of a poem, or into the weeds of Walden's work. Like, it's not easy to kind of understand those deep. But if you're talking statistics, Josh and I are already out. Like, we just don't
Yeah.
want to read that content. I'd much rather sit there and try and deal with Walden and than statistics. But I think I would still enjoy the process of having to learn about statistics in Perusall more than doing it alone.
And I think you brought up a really good point a second ago, which was that making visible to students that their classmates are struggling too, I think, is really important,
Yeah.
because I
Yeah.
think, and this is something that certainly I've seen with my students, in statistics, and I think it's true in a lot of other disciplines as well. Is that I think oftentimes students think that, oh, some people just get it,
Mm-hmm.
and they're cruising along, and the students who are doing well in the course, they were cruising from day one,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they're and I don't get it, and I'm never going to get there because I'm not one of those
Right.
math people or those statistics people. And I think part of my job as a teacher is to convince students that no, you can do this, right?
Yeah.
That this is totally a tractable problem, and you're going to be successful with this.
Right.
If you if you put the effort in and kind of develop these strategies for studying and for learning. And I think one of the nice things that we can do with this kind of social platform is help just make more visible to students that, look, it's not just you, right? Lots of students are struggling, and that's not anyone's fault. It's just because this is challenging material. But you can then see the progression that you make, that your classmates make, and it, I think, helps change that mental model of, for me, statistics, but really whatever the thing is that you're learning, that this is either something that you either know or you don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the reality is that it's something that you learn, and that
It's not black and
has to
white.
be developed.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think Brian would like just talking to you about some of like the clearly the passion that comes through for this, the stuff that drove you to this, the realization that's occurring to me that I feel like should have occurred to me earlier when we were like Will and I were talking about this tool even earlier, is that you guys have kind of given like a digital visual interface to what it looks like to do active reading, right? And like kind of put it in front of people, so that like the process can kind of almost become it's been put into an interface for people to work through.
It created a scaffold.
Yeah, it created a scaffold for it. Yeah, and I think that's just, it's really powerful to all the stuff you're talking about, because it's just like before, I think this has all been kind of like mental stuff that we all work through as we look into reading, and now it's kind of like, okay, well, there's sort of, yes, it's digital, but a physical space for you to actually work through this stuff, and the instructor to see it. My immediate reaction and all the stuff we're talking about too is just like even the power of just being able as an instructor to come into the next class and see over the last couple of days what has been happening in the reading, and be able to leverage that to help answer questions in class during your time together, things like that. Just, I think it's really powerful, what it can do when it's focused around the actual text itself, which is just really cool. Now I want to ask, because obviously you have had some experience with the tool, and you're a teacher yourself, which is great. Just if you had any like top kind of stories from users, whether it's experience in your own classroom or just in general, people who have kind of talked about how this tool helped them with their students, or in their field, I think that'd be really cool.
Yeah, the thing that I mean, certainly the point that you make about being able to know what students are thinking before you come into class, I think we see a lot, and that's been a goal of ours to help kind of create that positive feedback loop
Okay. Yeah.
between the reading and when I say reading because that's what we started with, but certainly you're right that we've got video now, we've got audio. So I say the reading, I really mean like the content.
Yeah.
But create that positive feedback loop between the content outside of class and what happens in class, so that I think if students see that the content is closely connected to what happens in class, it'll motivate them both to come to class and also to engage in the content.
We
right?
need that.
Yeah.
Like if we can show students that, hey, your instructor is listening to what you have to say, and they're adjusting what happens in class to address the concerns that you have and that the confusion you have, and that was our impetus behind our confusion report, is to give the instructor kind of this view into what students are confused about, so that students can see very explicitly, oh, like the professor's listening to what I have to say, and I think that's really powerful, because then it tells the student this is worth my time. Going back to what we were talking about before about motivation and convincing students this is a worthwhile activity for them. Class time is not just this kind of like movie that runs, and it's like this pre-done movie that kind of runs when you get into the classroom.
The Netflix approach.
Exactly. It's a dynamic thing that's based on what the class is concerned about. I think that is really powerful for students, and makes you again makes you I think it makes you want to come to class, and also makes you want to really delve into the reading more. Um, and that's been a really important thing to us, and I think it's been gratifying when we kind of see people say that they get those kinds of insights about their students, and what their students know. Sometimes those things are really surprising. I mean, sometimes you've especially when you taught something for a long time, you often a lot of what students are going to be confused about even before they walk into to the classroom, right?
Some things you've probably felt confused about.
Yeah,
exactly. But sometimes sometimes students surprise you, and it's good to know what those things are, so you can react to them, and I think you can even potentially plan on how you're going to react to them. You don't have to figure out in the moment how you're going to respond to this unusual confusion or this unusual concern or idea that's come up. But one thing that's always stuck out to me that I heard from an instructor once is that he felt that what he was getting out of Perusall was not just knowing what, like, kind of the nuts and bolts of what are students understanding, what are they not understanding, what are they focusing on, what are they confused about. He said, that's really helpful, but it's also given me he said it's given me a lot of new respect for students, which I thought was a really interesting insight, and one that's kind of stuck with me. That the idea that being able to see through your students' eyes how they're approaching this content.
Okay.
I think helps remind you that this is hard stuff, right? Yeah. And it
humanizes them.
Right, exactly. And I mean, we were all students. We all learned this, for the first time at one time.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's been a long time, right? And an increasingly long time as the years
longer every day.
Yeah.
Right. But also certainly the people who teach at colleges and universities are a very small self-selected group of all students.
Yep.
Right.
Yes.
And so it's I think it's really good for us as instructors to get an appreciation of what our students are thinking, how they're thinking about this stuff, and I think that helps to your point humanize them, and to what this instructor was saying, help us respect our students more as people, and give us more insight into where they're coming from. And I think that's really important, and I think that could also even go beyond these sorts of technical courses. This was an instructor in engineering, so kind of similar technical field. But I think in non-technical courses, and even in technical courses when it's not a technical topic necessarily, our students are come from such diverse backgrounds and have such different worldviews, and that's a huge asset for the classroom. But it's only an asset if we know that it exists, and we
can provide a space to cultivate it.
Exactly. And I think and to me that's one of the really powerful things that we can do with this platform.
That's awesome.
That's cool.
We're looking ahead to the future then. Is there anything that's just dropped or that you're expecting to come out that you want to shoot for with Perusall? Like, hey, it doesn't have to be a complete platform overhaul, but anything interesting?
Yeah. And that's, we continue to really actively develop the platform. I think, we've always got new ideas about things we want to try. And
too many ideas.
Yeah, certainly. And one of the things that's fun about having it, working with a team of educators is it's a lot of it is stuff we'd like to try, right?
With you want in your classroom.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that's that's one of the things that's always to me is so much fun about building education technology in particular is being able to the old expression of eat your own dog food.
Yeah. That's a little vivid. I grew up with dogs. I know what we fed them at times. Like, yeah, I get it. You want to make sure that it's going to be good.
Yeah. But yeah, a few things that we've we've released recently. One is we've recently been trying to make more flexible the kinds of assignments that you can give to students and the kinds of ways that students can interact with assignments. So one of them is what we call like multimodal assignments. So we
Okay. Yeah.
kind of briefly touched on that. You can have different kinds of content in the course now. So it's not just reading. It can be it can also be video. It can be audio. And the reading can be obviously lots of different forms. It could be a textbook. It could be
Images,
right.
PDFs. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. PDFs.
Lecture notes. I've had faculty like write down their lecture notes and physically put them in there.
Exactly. Yeah. Put lecture notes. We recently added explicit support for images, so you can just kind of upload a big image if you're going to analyze that. PowerPoint slides.
Yeah.
So if you just use it as a place to put all your slides, and you have that as a reference. And then we also added the ability to have assignments that incorporate all these things into one assignment. So you can say, look, for class, you're gonna have one assignment that's you're gonna read this chapter of our book, and then you're gonna read this research article, and then watch this video, and have it all be together and scored as one unit, and be kind of one combined thing. We also recently added the ability to let students contribute to the course library as well. So you can designate a folder as we're calling a student upload folder. So a student upload folder is a place where students can just drop things in as well. And so one thing that people started using that for is for peer review type assignments, where I'm going to have students are writing papers, or they're writing something, or they're going to contribute their own articles. They can drop those those PDFs into the student upload folder, and then people, students can, other students or the instructors can access them within the library, or as an instructor, you can kind of farm those out and assign those out to other students as well. And create kind of like a differentiated review assignment.
So we're becoming more of a platform experience. Like let's set up the students in this space and just keep them in here. I love it.
Yeah, and really, what I think one of our goals is to anything in the course where we can build more social interaction between students. We'd like to do that. And I think one of our goals is to help students develop relationships that are not just limited to the relationships they would build because they're seeing their classmates for 50 minutes, 3 times a week in the classroom. We had a lot of, we've had a lot of growth, during, COVID, the last year and a half or so. Understandably, I think because with the shift online, I think a lot of folks have sort of took a second look at, look what's out there that can help me, make my online.
Everybody reached for something.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we weren't developed for online courses in particular, and our thinking about this, from the beginning has been, how can we use an online platform to help students develop better relationships that then carry over to the in-person experience. So certainly we have lots of folks that use Perusall in online courses, and I think it works really well there. But we'd also like to help students develop relationships that will, carry over to the in-person experience, so that when they walk into the classroom, it's 11:30 at night, they're getting help from their classmates, they're chatting with other students, getting help on whatever they need help with, or discussing a interesting issue or a hot topic or whatnot. They come into class the next day. Maybe they've been reviewing papers that their classmates wrote. They come in class the next day, and they say, "Oh, you're Bob. I know you. I was reading your paper last night." Or
we were in a heated debate until 1 a.m. last
exactly.
night.
we were chatting about this thing, or you really helped me with this.
I really appreciate that.
With this formula or this concept. Yeah, that was really helpful for me. And I think, particularly in larger courses where you don't really have that ability otherwise to get students to develop relationships with more than a handful of other students, if any at all. I think it can be really, really valuable. So that's I think that's a little bit of the impetus behind some of this stuff. A couple other things I'll throw out there. we also recently added the ability to add polls to comments. So
Okay.
whether
Okay.
you're, and this is something that instructors or students can do. So anyone, when you're posting a comment, you can throw a little poll in there that other students can respond to, instructors can respond to,
Love it.
and
Just keep
we're
giving.
what's that?
I said, you guys just keep giving.
Yeah.
They tasted their dog food and they want to make it better.
It's one of these things where like we're kind of excited about a lot of different potential uses for this, and I'm really excited to see how folks use it. But I think there's a lot of opportunity for for example, maybe you're an instructor and you're to your idea from before, you're kind of preceding the discussion with a few kind of questions that you have for students or things you want students to talk about. This might, you might have a poll as part of that, or students might poll each other. They have something that they want to hear from their classmates about, and so just another way of kind of getting at that goal of getting students to interact more and to kind of build those relationships with each other around the content.
Cool.
And then two more things I'll tell you. Maybe this is more than you wanted to hear, but I'm just excited about these, so I'll tell you.
Go for it.
One is that one challenge with PDFs is always that they can be, it's a kind of a it's an unusual format in the sense that you've got you might have pages that are rotated one way or the other, or
vertical, then horizontal, then images, then text again.
Yeah,
exactly. And if it's something that you've scanned, then it's there's no machine readable text in it, and so if you upload it to Perusall, which you can, students have to kind of use the image annotation tools to work with it. Which is fine, but is not ideal for accessibility purposes, where you really want that machine readable text embedded, so you can use our read aloud feature and that sort of thing. And so it's kind of typically involves some work on the instructor's part, where they have to have got some pages, I have to rotate those pages. Maybe I have to find an OCR program and figure out how to use that. And OCR,
they got to read up on what OCR is. Yep.
Exactly.
There's a whole or they have to talk to a really great instructional designer who's available to assist them at any day, any time, if they have one.
Exactly. And one of the things that one of our other goals is to help instructors. We want them to add this social aspect to the class, and to the content, but we're really cognizant of the fact that the most valuable commodity of instructors is time, right? And the more time it takes to set something up or to use it or to monitor it, I think the more challenging it is to adopt and to use. So we try to make do whatever we can to help save instructors time. So one of the features that we've actually just released just this week is that when you upload PDFs now, it'll, to the extent the system can, will actually automatically rotate pages so they're all upright. Will automatically apply OCR, so that it's most of the time it's just a kind of drop in, just drop your PDF and don't worry about it. Which is our because that's our that's our goal for instructors, is to be able to say,
ease of use,
just drop all your stuff in and kind of you're off. We want you to
we want you to teach.
Right.
We
want
you
to
worry about the other stuff.
Exactly. And frankly, we have instructors at the full range of how much they want to engage with the platform, right? We have some instructors who really like going into even at the level of the individual discussion and participating in the discussion with students. We have instructors that like using analytics, but we also have instructors who they don't really have the bandwidth for that. And they just want the benefit of, I just want to have something where I know students are going to come to class having read the book. So for them, to the extent that we can make it possible to just set it up really quickly at the beginning of the semester and then just let it go, the better. And this is kind of aimed towards that. And then one more final thing I'll mention is we've recently released a few features towards the idea that it's important to us for all the students and instructors too to feel kind of welcomed in the platform, and that they're able to express themselves for who they are. So we've released a few features around around that idea. Um, one small thing is being able to change your name in the platform. So when we integrate Perusall with a LMS like Canvas or Blackboard, it'll sync things automatically with the LMS, so you don't have to set up your account, but that means that the name in your LMS is your name in Perusall. And for some,
which we all know may already not be what they want to identify as, or may not be correct.
Exactly. Right. And so one small thing that I think can be impactful for a lot of folks is now you can just say in Perusall, look, I don't want to use my LMS name. I want to use this name instead. So you can do that. Awesome. You can add optionally, you can add preferred pronouns to your Perusall account that'll show up next to your name wherever your name is appearing, and then also inside the discussions when you're picking emoji, you can also pick different skin tone emoji as well, which is one of these things that I think is becoming more and more common, just because people want. You want emoji that look like you.
Such a small feature, like you just people don't even think about it when it comes to like using it, but the impact on kind of the socio-emotional learning experience is, I think, is significant. That's really, I mean, I'm sold on your tool for the functionality and what it does pedagogically, but yet this platform you're building, I think, is just so important for the learning experience for students. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think if anything, you have given us more features than I even knew existed in Perusall. I'm sitting here going, maybe there's a part 2 we need to do, because I feel like we missed a whole lot of things. But Brian, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us today about just your passion for the tool. It's clear that man, you guys just had like this clear passion for what you wanted to bring forth, and I think you're doing it. So I think it's really exciting. And just some of the features you guys are throwing in. I mean, some of the polls and OCRing is something I wouldn't have expect out of a tool like this, and you're throwing it in there. So I like the extra. You just keep giving. So it's really cool. I think
Christmas.
I can't recommend your tool enough, and I think you've further won me over even in this interview. Not that you needed to. I was already on your side. It was. I think you just brought me over further. So I really appreciate it. I appreciate the tool that you guys have put together. And it's just I think it's really exciting. I think it's going to be very useful for instructors and what they need to do. So I think it's really cool. So really excited about it.
Well, thanks so much, and thanks so much for having me. This was a lot of fun to talk with you guys, and I'm always excited, love talking about this stuff. So this was a lot of fun.
Very cool.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Well, folks, we will, as we normally do, close out this episode a little farther here with Will and I just kind of giving a little debrief. But again, this is Brian from Perusall. Check him out. Check out the tool. Check out Perusall on Twitter. Please go start using it. I think this is a powerful tool. Go do it. Even if you want to be that instructor on the spectrum of, I just want something to know they're reading, or you're like, oh, I need something else with analytics. Drop it and check this tool out, because I think it's really cool.
Whew. What an interview. Well, is there anything else to say?
I'm not sure. I don't have a lot of beneficial things to add at this point.
He nailed it.
I feel like,
that was
gosh.
The idea behind Perusall, of course, is to make social annotation, digital annotation easier. Brian just spent a good amount of time with us detailing how they're doing it, how it's working out for them, and how it's going to get even easier. I mean, literally building OCR, which is optical character recognition, right?
Yes, for those of you who are not in
what that literally just that functionally that means that if you go into the PDF, you can click and drag any word in there, and your computer will be able to like copy and paste those words out, right? That's what it means for you if you're not familiar with the technology. And if they can automate that and make it free and easy, like that takes time. Josh, how much time do your people spend doing that?
Oh, I don't know. But
Too
I mean,
much,
it's
right?
part of our official process. I mean,
people
it's
are
not
paid
like,
to do that.
it's not done in like 5 seconds. I mean, we have student workers in our department who literally do that for people because other people don't have time.
Yeah, it's
like,
nuts.
yeah.
I just really think that it was such a great interview. I really do want to thank Brian again and Perusall for taking the time to spend time with us. We think that this tool really is going to not only be beneficial for folks who need to use it in higher education context, but I could see it absolutely being used in K-12. I mean, I would have loved this in my literature classes. #nerd.
Yeah, I could see it in other places. I think it has a lot of use in just a general, like, he made a comment in there that blew my mind, which is that they did not even think of online education when they first created the tool.
And yet,
I'm like, man, you don't even know. You're
how
like,
good it is.
You're giving online ed so much to think about and work with. And so, I think but all I can add to that interview is simply that this tool is free and it is a treasure trove of features and things that can be used. And I think Brian said it well in the interview when he was talking that you can use it as those who just simply want to get some text in there and get some context to know that you just be assured that your students are reading. To those of us who are a bit nerdier, like Will and I, who want to drop some stuff in, use OCR, start mentioning people. I want to look at confusion reports. Like I want to dig it. I want it all. Okay, so
I know I still haven't clicked through every menu and option that's in the product.
Oh, no,
and I'm like,
not at all.
I could sit down on a Saturday and play with that. I wouldn't be upset about it.
Yeah. We barely touched the surface. So just a treasure trove of things. I can't thank Brian enough, and encourage you guys, if you didn't check it out after our first episode about Perusall, what are you waiting for? Stop it. Stop this episode. Go look at Perusall. That's your immediate next task from the High Tech Podcast.
If you were in our Notion database, he would have just assigned that task to you. Like, your wrist has been slapped.
Yes. You have been assigned. Go to Perusall,
Go
my
forth.
friends.
And annotate. No, I think that Josh has nailed it. And frankly, folks, we're going to keep this a little bit shorter here this week to wrap the episode because it was just such a wealthy or so rich. Such a good conversation, good information there. It's nice to know that the product side is matching with the philosophy side, right? Brian knows why he's doing what he's doing with the company and with the product, he and his team, and you see it in the functionality. So it's really encouraging too to know that he's still teaching. Like, just check off all of the check boxes on my list. Thank you again. This is the High Tech Podcast. This time we're really focusing in on specific annotation stuff with this interview, but we hope that you think about not only how this could impact your reading assignments, your writing assignments, but even the community you might be able to build with your students, whether that's in a physical or digital classroom. Hopefully you've learned a little bit more about how to harness the technology available to you. Until next time, see ya.
See ya.